The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council was exactly what you'd expect from a bunch of aliens who took themselves way too seriously. Vaulted ceilings that disappeared into some kind of artificial nebula, floating holographic displays everywhere. Seats designed for approximately 47 different body types, none of which looked remotely comfortable. Commander Jake Reeves sat in the human delegation pod, wearing cargo pants and a jacket that had definitely seen better days. He was surrounded by representatives who'd shown up in their species equivalent of formal wear. To his left, a crystalline being literally refracted light in what he assumed was their version of a tuxedo. To his right, something that looked like a very official jellyfish pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. At the center podium stood High Arbiter Kleth, an insectoid creature whose obsession with bureaucratic procedure was legendary across 3 sectors. Their compound eyes scanned the assembly with the intensity of someone who genuinely enjoyed parliamentary process, which, apparently, they did. Order. Queleth's translator implant announced in a tone that suggested they said this a lot. We convene the 441st session of the Galactic Security Summit. Today's agenda: finalizing the Universal Weapons Registry for the Galactic Peace Accord. Jake stifled a yawn. He'd been to exactly 3 of these meetings, and they all followed the same pattern. Someone proposed regulations. Everyone argued about definitions for 6 hours. They'd break for refreshments that humans couldn't digest. Then they'd vote on something vague and call it progress. Each member species, Kleth continued, has submitted their weapons inventory as requested. The Zentari Collective has registered 12 items. The Morphid Consortium has registered 23. The Crystalline Communion has registered 8. Jake noticed the gelatinous ambassador beside him leaning over. This was Torvin, one of the few aliens who'd actually tried to make conversation during the breaks. How many did your species register? Torvin asked, their voice bubbling up through their translucent form. Jake glanced at his datapad. Last I checked, we were at 3,247, but the committee was still cataloging the sports equipment category, so that number's probably low. Torvin's entire body rippled in what might have been shock. 3,000? Surely that's an error in translation? And the human delegation, Queleth's voice cut through the murmur that had started spreading through the chamber, has submitted what appears to be an incomplete filing. The preliminary count exceeds 3,000 entries and includes several categories we do not understand. Every compound eye, optical sensor, and sensory organ in the room turned toward Jake. There are subcategories labeled kitchen implements, office supplies, and something called sports equipment, Queleth continued, their mandibles clicking in confusion. We assume this is a clerical error, perhaps a data corruption during transmission? Jake stood up slowly, the kind of movement that suggested he really wished he was anywhere else. No corruption. That's accurate. Well, mostly accurate. We're still waiting on the geology department to finish their section. The silence in the chamber was the kind that usually preceded something exploding. Commander Reeves, Kleth said carefully, surely you are not suggesting that humans possess over 3,000 distinct weapon types. Oh no, Jake said, and for a moment, relief washed over the assembled aliens. That's just the preliminary list. We stopped counting at 3,000 because the intern doing the catalog went on vacation. The actual number's probably higher. Torvin made a sound like water going down a drain. Another delegate, something with too many tentacles, raised an appendage. Perhaps there is a cultural misunderstanding? What do humans define as a weapon? Jake scratched his head. Pretty much anything that can hurt, maim, or kill something else. Or that could be modified to do those things with minimal effort. Or that has historically been used to do those things, even if that wasn't its original purpose. That's, Kleth paused, searching for words. That's an extremely broad definition. Yeah, we're pretty creative when it comes to violence. Jake agreed cheerfully. It's kind of our thing. The chamber erupted into chittering, buzzing, and various sounds of alien concern. Queleth slammed their gavel equivalent, which was actually some kind of sonic pulse that made everyone's teeth hurt. This is highly irregular, Queleth announced. Commander Reeves, you will remain after this session for a detailed explanation. We cannot approve a weapons registry that lists kitchen implements. Jake sat back down and muttered to Torvin. They have no idea what's coming. Torvin's gelatinous form quivered. Should we be worried? Nah, Jake said. We're the good guys. Mostly. Just don't ask about the kitchen. Knives. The main assembly had cleared out, leaving just Jake, Queleth, Torvin, and a handful of other delegates who'd apparently drawn the short straw on deal with the humans' duty. They'd moved to a smaller conference room that still somehow managed to look pretentious. The walls displayed slowly rotating star systems, because apparently even the meeting rooms needed to show off. Cleth settled into their seat with the air of someone preparing for a minor administrative clarification that would take 10 minutes, tops. Commander Reeves, let us resolve this efficiently. Please explain the discrepancy in your weapons filing so we may correct the record and proceed. Jake leaned back in his chair. Sure. Where do you want me to start? The beginning would be logical. All right. Conventional weapons. Guns, rifles, pistols, shotguns. Various calibers, various delivery mechanisms. Then you've got mounted weapons, artillery, missiles, rockets, torpedoes, naval cannons, railguns, coil, guns, explosives ranging from grenades to bunker busters, landmines, both anti-personnel and anti-vehicle, claymores, C4, dynamite. That's just the basic stuff. Queleth's mandibles relaxed slightly. This is reasonable. All species have projectile weapons and explosives. Continue. Then we get into unconventional weapons, Jake said casually. Biological warfare, weaponized pathogens, bacteria, viruses. We've got a whole catalog of diseases we've figured out how to spread tactically. Chemical weapons, nerve agents, blister agents, choking agents, blood agents. Tear gas if you want the non-lethal options, though I should mention we also use that on ourselves for crowd control. A insectoid delegate that wasn't Queleth made a clicking sound of distress. And nuclear weapons, obviously, Jake continued. Fission, fusion, hydrogen bombs, neutron bombs, dirty bombs. We've got bunker-penetrating nukes, submarine-launched nukes, intercontinental ballistic missiles with multiple, independent re-entry vehicles. Oh, and we invented something called a cobalt bomb that we decided was too horrific to actually build, which should tell you something about where our line is. Torvin's gelatinous form had gone slightly opaque. Commander Reeves, surely these weapons are banned in human-controlled space. Illegal to possess? Most of them, yeah. We have treaties, Jake said. We agreed not to use them on each other. Mostly. I mean, we still make them and stockpile them just in case. But we pinky promised not to deploy them unless things get really bad. Pinky promised? Cleth asked. It's a human gesture of trust. You link your smallest fingers together. Very binding. The silence suggested that exactly nobody found this reassuring. But surely, another delegate spoke up, this one resembling a very dignified tree. This accounts for your 3,000 entries? You have simply been very thorough in cataloging variations? Jake laughed. Not a polite chuckle, an actual laugh. Oh no, that was just me giving you context. That's the obvious stuff, the things that are clearly designed as weapons. That's maybe 200 entries if we're being specific about subcategories. He reached for his laptop, which had been sitting closed on the table. The sound of it opening was apparently the most ominous thing several species in the room had ever heard. The other 3,000 entries are what we call dual-use items, Jake said, pulling up a file. Things that have a normal, everyday purpose, but that humans have also figured out how to use as weapons. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident. Usually through trial and error, with emphasis on the error part. Cleth leaned forward, compound eyes focusing on Jake's screen. Surely this is exaggeration for effect. I really wish it was, Jake said, and he sounded almost apologetic. But every single item on this list has documented cases of humans using it in combat. We didn't theorize about this stuff. We actually did it, multiple times. In some cases, we did it so much we had to invent specific laws telling people to stop. He turned the laptop so everyone could see the screen. The first slide read, Weaponization Potential of Common Human Objects, a Comprehensive Review. Below that, in smaller text, Volume 1 of 7, Household Items. Torvin made the drain sound again. Longer this time. Let's start with something simple, Jake said, clicking to the next slide. Category, Kitchen Items. An image appeared. It showed what was clearly a cooking implement. A flat metal pan with a handle. This is a frying pan, Jake explained. Primary purpose, cooking food. Secondary purpose, close quarters combat weapon. Effective range, approximately 1 meter. Advantages, durable, readily available, plausible deniability. Disadvantages, none identified. Historical use cases, 2,847 documented assaults, 43 homicides. One notable case where someone fought off a bear. A bear, Cleth repeated flatly. Big furry thing, with claws. Very dangerous. The pan one. Jake clicked through several more slides. Kitchen knives, chef's knives, steak knives. butter knives, which apparently could still cause injury with sufficient determination. Meat tenderizers, rolling pins, cheese graters. Wait, the tree delegate said. How does one weaponize a cheese grater? Creatively and painfully, Jake said. Moving on. Frozen poultry. A new image appeared. A large frozen bird. This is a turkey, Jake explained. When frozen solid, it weighs approximately 20 pounds and has the aerodynamic properties of a brick. Humans have used frozen turkeys as projectiles, bludgeoning weapons, and in one memorable incident, a battering ram. Why, Torvin asked, their voice barely bubbling above a whisper. Would you freeze a turkey for combat purposes? We don't freeze them for combat. We freeze them for long-term food storage. But in a pinch, if you need a weapon and you have a frozen turkey, well, Jake shrugged. Humans are opportunistic. This is insane, Cleth said. This is just the kitchen, Jake replied. We haven't even gotten to cleaning supplies yet. Jake clicked to the next section. The header read, Cleaning supplies and household chemicals. Now this is where it gets interesting, Jake said, with the enthusiasm of someone about to explain their favorite hobby. Humans are very concerned with cleanliness. We invented dozens of chemicals specifically to kill bacteria, remove stains, and sanitize surfaces. Turns out most of those chemicals are also great at killing things that aren't bacteria. He pulled up an image of two common bottles, bleach and ammonia. Separately, they're just cleaning agents. Mix them together, you get chloramine gas. Highly toxic. Can cause severe respiratory damage. Every bottle sold in human space has a warning label specifically telling people not to mix these, which of course means people keep doing it by accident. By accident? Cleth's mandibles were twitching now. Usually, sometimes on purpose during what we call the World Wars. We had 2 of those. They were bad. Jake said it the way someone might mention a particularly unpleasant dentist appointment. He continued through the list. Drain cleaner, which was essentially acid in a bottle. Oven cleaner, which could cause chemical burns. Window cleaner, which was mostly ammonia. Furniture polish, which was flammable. Air fresheners in aerosol cans, which could be combined with a lighter to create an improvised flamethrower. Wait, stop, the tree delegate said. Go back. Did you say flamethrower? Oh yeah. Hairspray works even better, but air freshener will do in a pinch. You just hold the spray button down and light the stream. Instant fire projection device. We have millions of videos of teenage humans doing this for entertainment. Entertainment, Torvin repeated weakly. Teenagers are basically humans who haven't developed impulse control yet. They're a hazard to themselves, and others, but mostly themselves. Jake pulled up the next category. Pressurized containers and appliances. Pressure cookers, he began, and he'd barely gotten the words out when a small mouse-like delegate in the back of the room made a squeaking sound and fainted. 2 other delegates rushed to help them. Are they okay? Jake asked, looking genuinely concerned. Their species has extremely sensitive threat detection, Cleth explained, waving a manipulator appendage. Continue, but perhaps avoid sudden mentions of explosive devices. But I was just getting to the good part about how pressure cookers are designed to contain high-pressure steam for cooking, but can be repurposed to contain other high-pressure reactions, if you follow my meaning. The mouse delegate, who'd just been revived, fainted again. Maybe skip that entry, Queleth suggested, their voice strained. Fair enough. Moving on to hand tools. Jake clicked through images of hammers, screwdrivers, wrenches, and saws, all designed for construction and repair, all used in approximately 15,000 violent crimes per year on Earth alone. The hammer is particularly popular. Good weight distribution. Substantial impact force. Easy to clean. Easy to clean, another delegate whispered in horror. Well, you don't want rust, Jake said reasonably. Queleth stood up abruptly. Commander Reeves, surely you are exaggerating these numbers for dramatic effect. These cannot all be legitimate weapon applications. Jake's expression became serious. He pulled up a new screen. Documented police reports, historical records, forensic analyses, page after page of verified incidents, each one cataloged with date, location, and object used. High Arbiter, I wish I was exaggerating, but humans have been around for about 200,000 years, and we spent most of that time figuring out new ways to hurt each other. We got really good at it. Every single item on this list has an actual body count. The room went silent. It was the kind of silence that happens when people realize a joke has stopped being funny. The frying pan incident with the bear, Jake continued, pulling up a news article, happened in Montana, 2019. Woman defended herself with her camping cookware. The rolling pin murder was in London, 1847. The frozen turkey assault was in Ohio, 2003. I have documentation for everything. Torvin had been slowly deflating throughout the presentation, their gelatinous form now noticeably smaller. Commander Reeves, how is your species still alive? You all live surrounded by weapons. We're actually very good at emergency medicine, Jake said. Had to be. Lot of practice. We invented trauma surgery, antibiotics, and rapid response medical systems specifically because we kept injuring each other with household objects. He clicked to the next category. Okay, let's move on to something lighter. Improvised vehicle weaponry. Cleth's compound eyes literally couldn't get wider, but their posture suggested. They were trying. Vehicles? Oh yeah, humans love vehicles. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, aircraft. We use them for transportation primarily, but they're also excellent weapons. Heavy, fast, lots of kinetic energy. You just point them at something and accelerate. This is standard vehicular combat, one of the other delegates said. Most species have war machines. No, you misunderstand, Jake said. I'm not talking about military vehicles. I'm talking about civilian transportation. Personal cars. The things humans use to go grocery shopping. He pulled up statistics. Approximately 1.3 million humans die in vehicle-related incidents per year. Most of those are accidents, but several thousand are intentional. We've used cars as battering rams, projectiles, and in coordinated attacks. Trucks can take out building supports. Motorcycles are excellent for mobile assaults. And shopping carts, Jake added, almost as an afterthought. What? Cleth said slowly. Is a shopping cart? Jake showed them an image, a metal basket on wheels. It's a small wheeled container for carrying groceries. Humans push them around in stores to collect food items, and you weaponize this. We've used them as battering rams, projectiles, mobile barricades, and in one case, a getaway vehicle after a bank robbery. The robber only made it about 50 meters before falling over, but points for creativity. Jake was really getting into his stride now, clicking through slides with the practiced ease of someone who'd given this presentation before and knew exactly where the good parts were. All right, category, sports equipment. The screen filled with images of various objects that looked purposefully designed to cause damage. A wooden club with a thick end, a long stick with a flat blade, metal rods with weighted ends. These are, in order, a baseball bat, a hockey stick, and a golf club, all designed for recreational activities, all proven extremely effective in close quarters. Combat. Cleth's translator made a sound that might have been a whimper. You design recreational equipment that looks like weapons? No, you've got it backwards, Jake said cheerfully. We designed weapons that were so effective, we decided to make games out of them. Well, not exactly, but the line gets pretty blurry. Baseball bats are just clubs we convinced ourselves were sporting goods. Hockey sticks are for a game we invented that's basically sanctioned violence on ice. Sanctioned violence, Torvin echoed. Oh yeah, let me show you. Jake pulled up footage of a professional ice hockey game. The delegates watched in growing horror as armored humans slammed into each other at high speeds, crashed into walls, fought over a small rubber disc, and occasionally just dropped their sticks and started punching each other. This is considered entertainment? The tree delegate asked, their branches quivering. Major entertainment. We sell tickets. Families bring their children. There are professional leagues with multi-million-dollar contracts. The players are celebrities. On screen, two players collided with a sound that made several delegates flinch. And you do this voluntarily? Torvin asked. Nobody is forcing you to participate in this? Forcing us. People compete for the privilege. It's one of our most popular sports. We have thousands of amateur leagues. Children start playing at age 5. 5? Cleth stood up again, their entire body rigid. You let your juveniles engage in sanctioned violence at 5 years old? Builds character, Jake said with a shrug. Plus they wear helmets. Usually. He clicked to the next slide before anyone could process that statement. Golf clubs are interesting because they come in sets of different weights and lengths, optimized for different ranges and impact forces. We invented an entire sport around hitting a small ball with them, but the clubs themselves have been used in over 6,000 documented assaults. Tennis, rackets, about 400 incidents. Cricket bats, roughly 1,000. 200. Lacrosse sticks, 89. You have statistics on this, Quilleth said flatly. We have statistics on everything. It's how we know what to warn people about. Not that the warnings help much. Jake advanced several slides. Bowling balls, which are heavy spheres designed to be thrown at pins, but work equally well on other targets. Ski poles, which are basically spears you strap to yourself before sliding down mountains at high velocity. Bicycle chains, which can be removed and used as flexible impact weapons. Pool cues, which are just sticks, but very well-balanced sticks. Why? One of the other delegates asked in a pained voice. Why do you need well-balanced sticks? For pool. It's a game where you hit balls with sticks to knock them into holes. Look, the balance matters for accuracy. Of course it does, the delegate muttered. Moving on, Jake said brightly. Category: office supplies. The screen changed to show an array of innocent-looking objects. Staplers, 3-hole punches, scissors, letter openers, tape dispensers. This is where humans spend most of their professional time. Offices, places of business. We furnished these spaces with hundreds of small tools to help with paperwork and organization. Every single one of them has been used as a weapon. He zoomed in on the stapler. This device drives metal fasteners through paper. Also works on skin. We have 847 documented cases of stapler-related injuries in workplace violence incidents. Workplace violence, Cleth repeated. Humans attack each other at work? Sometimes. Usually it's just accidents. But yeah, occasionally someone has a bad day. That's why we invented the field of human resources. Jake continued through the list. Scissors, which were obviously sharp. Letter openers, which were essentially small knives. 3-hole punches, which could crush fingers. Tape dispensers with serrated edges. Mechanical pencils that could puncture. Skin, pens that could be used as stabbing implements. You stab each other with writing instruments? Torvin had gone completely transparent now. The pen is mightier than the sword. Jake quoted. That's an actual human saying. We literally acknowledge that writing implements can be deadlier than bladed weapons. How? Several delegates asked simultaneously. Metaphorically, mostly. The saying means that written words have more lasting impact than violence. But also, you can definitely stab someone with a pen if the situation calls for it. He clicked to the next image, a large mechanical device with rotating blades. This is a paper shredder. It destroys documents by cutting them into small strips or particles. Obviously dangerous if you put body parts in it, but we have warning labels for that. One of the smaller delegates raised a tentacle. Commander Reeves, how do you weaponize a document shredder? Do you somehow launch the blades at enemies? What? No. You don't. Weaponize the shredder itself. You use the shredder to destroy evidence of your other weapons, or financial crimes, or embarrassing correspondence. It's a support weapon. The silence that followed suggested this explanation had not made things better. Oh, and paper itself, Jake added. We've had approximately 2.3 million paper cuts reported annually. Most are minor, but they're surprisingly painful for such a simple injury. Paper edges are thin enough to slice skin quite easily. In theory, you could probably kill someone with enough paper cuts, but I don't think anyone's actually tried that. Would take a while. Please stop theorizing, Cleth said weakly. Right, sorry. Let's move on to category, gardening equipment. The next slide showed shovels, rakes, hoes, pruning shears, and hedge trimmers. All designed to help humans cultivate plants and maintain outdoor spaces. All extremely dangerous in the wrong hands, or the right hands, depending on your perspective. Torvin was now. Just a small puddle of quivering gel. I need to sit down. You're a gelatinous species. You're always sitting down. I need to sit down more. Jake looked at his watch, then at his laptop. Okay, we've been at this for about 6 hours now. We're currently on slide 2,847 of 3,200. Should I keep going, or does everyone need a break? Keep going, Cleth said, their voice hollow. Let us finish this nightmare. Jake had reached the section labeled Household Items. Subsection G, Decorative Objects and Furnishings. His voice had taken on the monotone quality of someone who'd been presenting for far too long. But he pressed on with the determination of a man who was going to finish this list even if it killed everyone in the room. Throw pillows, Jake said, pulling up an image of a soft, cushioned rectangle. Primary purpose, decorative comfort items for furniture. Secondary purpose, suffocation risk, particularly for infants and the elderly. Tertiary purpose, projectiles in domestic disputes. Historical cases, 342 documented assaults, though most were non-lethal and classified as misdemeanors. Queleth's head was resting on the table. Their mandibles moved slightly. What was that? Jake asked. I said, Cleth repeated, lifting their head with visible effort. Throw pillows. You have weaponized decorative cushions. Well, humans weaponize them. I'm just cataloging it. Stop. The word echoed through the conference room with enough force that the holographic star displays flickered. Queleth stood at their full height, all of their limbs extended in what was probably a dramatic gesture for their species. Please, Commander Reeves, I am begging you. Just stop. We understand. We understand completely. Jake blinked. But I still have 353 slides left. We haven't even covered decorative vases, curtain rods, or floor lamps. And there's an entire subsection on holiday decorations that's really interesting. Did you know that humans invented a holiday where we bring trees inside our homes and cover them with glass spheres, and that those glass spheres shatter into razor-sharp fragments? And that we do this while children are present? Torvin had given up on maintaining any cohesive form and was now just a puddle on their chair, making sounds like a clogged drain. How are you still alive as a species? Jake considered the question seriously. Honestly, we're really good at emergency medicine. We had to invent trauma surgery around the year 1500 because we kept injuring ourselves in increasingly creative ways. Then we invented antibiotics because our wounds kept getting infected. Then we invented rapid response ambulance services because people kept having accidents with household objects. Then we invented the entire field of occupational safety because workers kept getting injured with industrial equipment. He paused. Actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm realizing that most of human medical advancement was just us trying to undo the damage we kept doing to ourselves. This is the most horrifying thing I have ever heard, the tree delegate said, their branches drooping. And I once witnessed a supernova destroy an inhabited system. Yeah, but that was natural causes, Jake pointed out. We do this to ourselves on purpose. Well, not on purpose. But we keep doing it anyway, which is kind of the same thing. Cleth slammed their manipulator appendages on the table, though the movement lacked their earlier force. We are calling a vote. All in favor of exempting humanity from the Universal Weapons Registry requirements, indicate now. Every single delegate raised some form of appendage, tentacle, or branch. The vote was instantaneous and unanimous. Motion carries, Cleth said, their voice exhausted. Humans are officially exempt from weapons registration requirements. The reasoning will be filed as comprehensive documentation would exceed our database storage capacity by a factor of approximately 40. Also, another delegate added weakly, because if we have to classify every object humans own as a potential weapon, we would need to classify literally everything as a weapon, which makes the entire registry meaningless. That's fair, Jake said, closing his laptop with a satisfying click. So we're good? No more paperwork? You are terrifying, Cleth said. But yes, you are good. Please leave. Jake stood up, stretching after 6 hours of sitting. He gathered his laptop and notes, moving toward the door. The delegates watched him go with the exhausted relief of people who'd just survived a natural disaster. He was almost out the door when Torvin's voice, barely a burble, called out, Commander Reeves. Wait, Jake turned back. Yeah? Torvin had managed to pull themselves back into a roughly vertical form, though they were still noticeably smaller than when the meeting had started. I must know. What do humans consider not a weapon? There must be something. Some object that cannot possibly be used to cause harm. Jake's face scrunched up in genuine thought. His hand went to his chin. He stood there for a solid 30 seconds, really considering the question. You know, he finally said, that's actually a really good question. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Give us 5 minutes and the right motivation, and we'll figure out how to weaponize pretty much anything. Surely there must be something, the tree delegate insisted. Cotton balls? Jake suggested, then immediately shook his head. No, wait, choking hazard. Plus, if you soak them in alcohol, they become excellent fire starters. Bubbles? No, the soap solution can cause eye damage. Foam rubber, suffocation risk, and also flammable. He snapped his fingers. Oh, I've got it. Thoughts and prayers. We offer those to people all the time, and they've never hurt anyone. Because they are not physical objects, Cleth said flatly. Right, yeah. If it's physical, we can weaponize it. Jake shrugged apologetically. He turned to leave again, then paused with his hand on the door panel. Oh, one more thing. I should probably mention that this was just the household items list. Volume 1 of 7, remember? I didn't even get to the geology section. Cleth's compound eyes focused with sudden intensity. Geology? That is the study of planetary formations and minerals, yes? Yep. How does one weaponize geology? Jake grinned. It was not a reassuring expression. Rocks? High arbiter. We have over 400 documented ways to weaponize rocks. That's not counting minerals, which is a whole separate category. We've been doing it for 200,000 years. It's literally our oldest technology. Rocks, Cleth repeated in a whisper. Rocks, ranging from pebbles you can throw, to boulders you can drop, to processed stones you can use as grinding wheels, construction materials, or art installations that become deadly in the wrong circumstances. We even figured out how to split certain rocks to release enormous amounts of energy. We call those nuclear weapons. I mentioned those earlier. He gave a cheerful wave. Anyway, thanks for the exemption. Really saved us a lot of paperwork. You folks have a good one. The door closed behind him with a soft hiss. The conference room sat in absolute silence for approximately 30 seconds after Commander Jake Reeves left. Nobody moved. Several delegates appeared to be questioning their life choices. Finally, Cleth spoke, their voice carrying the weight of someone who just had a religious experience, except the religion was existential dread. I need to update the human species file in the galactic database. What are you going to put? One of the other delegates asked. Quilleth's manipulator appendages moved across their datapad with mechanical precision. Threat level, unknown. Technological capability, moderate. Danger assessment, extreme. Notes. Species has weaponized approximately everything in their environment, including but not limited to food preparation equipment, cleaning supplies, recreational items, office materials, transportation devices, decorative objects, and planetary geology. Recommend extreme caution in any conflict scenario. Secondary note. Species appears unaware of how unusual this is. They know, Torvin gurgled from their chair puddle. They absolutely know. That human was enjoying himself. He did seem remarkably cheerful while describing 200,000 years of violence. The tree delegate agreed. Another delegate, who'd been silent for most of the presentation, finally spoke up. They were a floating crystalline being who communicated through light pulses. I have a question. The human mentioned that they agreed not to use their worst weapons on each other. What happens if we make them angry? If they decide we are a threat? The room somehow got quieter. They will use the throw pillows on us, someone whispered. This is not funny, Quelleth said. But their voice lacked conviction. It is absolutely not funny, Torvin agreed, slowly reforming into something resembling their original shape. We have just learned that the newest species to join the Galactic Council has spent their entire evolutionary history turning everything they touch into a weapon. They live on a planet covered in weapons. They sleep on weapons, they cook with weapons, they play games with weapons. They give weapons to their children as toys. To be fair, the tree delegate said, most of those items were not designed as weapons. That makes it worse. Torvin's volume increased enough that their gelatinous form rippled. They do not need to design weapons. They just use whatever is nearby. Do you understand what that means in a combat scenario? Every room is an armory. Every building is a fortress. Every human is potentially armed at all times, even when they appear to have nothing. Cleth had stopped entering data and was staring at their datapad. I am reading the preliminary contact reports from when we first encountered humanity. The initial assessment team noted that humans seemed friendly, cooperative, and eager to join the galactic community. They mentioned humans appeared to have standard defensive capabilities and no notable aggressive tendencies. The assessment team, another delegate said slowly, visited Earth. They went to human cities. They were surrounded by weapons the entire time and never knew it. Oh, ancestors, Cleth breathed. The small mouse-like delegate who'd fainted earlier had recovered enough to speak. Their voice was tiny and terrified. What if this presentation was incomplete? What if Commander Reeves did not tell us everything? Every being in the room turned to look at them. He said they stopped cataloging at 3,000 items because someone went on vacation, the mouse delegate continued. He said the geology department had not finished their section. He said this was volume 1 of 7. What is in volumes? 2 through 7? Nobody wanted to answer that question. Torvin slowly extended a pseudopod to access their own datapad. I am looking at the full filing now. Volume 2 is titled Industrial Equipment and Manufacturing Tools. Volume 3, Modified Electronics and Communications Devices. Volume 4, Chemical Compounds and Pharmaceutical Applications. Volume 5, Biological Agents and Agricultural Products. Volume 6, Improvised Explosive Devices, A Historical Perspective. Volume 7. Theoretical Weapons Humans Have Not Built Yet, but Could If Motivated. Theoretical weapons they have not built yet, Quillith repeated. They made a list, the tree delegate said, of weapons they have not invented, just in case they need ideas later. That is actually kind of smart, one of the other delegates admitted. Horrifying, but smart. Cleth stood up with the decisive movement of someone making an important decision. I am calling an emergency session of the Security Council. We need to draft new protocols for human interaction. What kind of protocols? Torvin asked. The kind that ensure we never, ever, give humanity a reason to be creative. Quillith's mandibles clicked nervously. The humans said they were good guys. Mostly. We need to make absolutely certain they continue to feel that way. Agreed, chorused every delegate in the room. The crystalline being pulsed a question. Should we warn the other council species? About what, exactly? Cleth asked. That humans have weaponized throw pillows? They will think we have lost our minds. We could show them the presentation, someone suggested. No. Torvin's response was immediate and firm. I barely survived that presentation. I will not watch it again. I will not subject others to it. We will simply update the database and hope that nobody else asks humans for detailed weapons documentation. Seconded, said multiple voices. Cleth saved their notes and stood to leave. The other delegates began, gathering their things, moving with the exhausted slowness of people who just completed an ordeal. As they filed out, Torvin paused at the doorway, looking back at the empty chair where Jake had sat for 6 hours, calmly explaining how his species had weaponized literally everything they'd ever touched. We should never make them angry, Torvin said quietly. What? Cleth turned back. The humans. We should never make them angry. Never give them a reason to use their 400 rock-based weapons or their frozen turkeys or their office supplies. They are friendly now. They want to be part of the galactic community. We should keep it that way. Cleth's compound eyes focused on Torvin. Are you suggesting we befriend humanity out of fear? I am suggesting we befriend humanity out of basic survival instinct, Torvin corrected. Any species that can turn throw pillows into weapons is not a species we want as an enemy. Also, the tree delegate added from the hallway. The human seemed nice, cheerful, good sense of humor. He described 200,000 years of violence while smiling, someone pointed out. Yes, but it was a friendly smile. Quillith made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been a sob. We are all insane. This entire day has driven us insane. They walked out together, leaving the conference room empty, except for the slowly rotating holographic stars and the lingering sense that the galaxy had just become a much more interesting and significantly more dangerous place. Somewhere in the building, Commander Jake Reeves was probably getting coffee and wondering why everyone kept staring at him. In the High Arbiter's database, a new file completed its upload. Species, human. Threat assessment, do not antagonize. Recommended action, maintain friendly relations at all costs. Below that, in smaller text that Cleth had added as a personal note, they weaponize throw pillows. They are either geniuses or completely insane. Possibly both. We are not equipped to deal with this. And in an office 3 floors down, a junior analyst was reviewing the human weapons filing and had just reached the section on geology. They stared at their screen for a long moment, then quietly closed the file, walked to their supervisor's office, and submitted a request for immediate reassignment to any department that did not involve humans. The request was approved within minutes. The galaxy, as it turned out, was going to need some time to adjust to humanity. Humanity, meanwhile, was just getting started.